One of the cornerstones to teaching your dog anything is having him give you focused attention. This is an instructional video that will show you 10 steps to teaching basic attention. Frequently, handlers tell us that their dog doesn't listen. It's because they haven't taught the dog to give focused attention. It makes no sense to give the dog any command until he's first paying attention to the handler. Here's some things that you'll need. To start, we'll start with a leash, some toys, and some treats. The first step in teaching attention will be teaching the dog to respond to his name. With this drill, you can first take a lure out and hold it in your hand. Call the dog's name and attract the dog's attention to your face. The moment he gives you eye contact, mark it with the word yes, and then provide the treat. It's a good idea to practice providing the reward from both hands, so the dog doesn't always look to one hand for the treat.
Lucy. Yes. Good girl. Lucy, Lucy. Yes.
The next step in teaching attention is getting a little duration on the eye contact. We're going to add the word watch. Here you see the handler do as before, call the dog's name, but when the dog gives eye contact, they no longer mark it with the word yes, but instead add what we call a keep going signal, which is praise on that eye contact. They'll then add the command watch. Once the dog has given a brief amount of eye contact, that's when the word yes will be used and the reward will be given.
Lucy. Good girl. Watch. Yes. Good.
The third step is going to be adding duration to the word watch. We'll now be looking for the dog to maintain that eye contact for a longer period of time. This should be done in slow, steady increments. Don't look for a lot of attention all at once. Just add a second or two to each time you practice.
Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good girl. Good. Good girl. Good. Yes. Good girl. Good.
In step number 4, we want to make sure that we're rewarding eye contact. Not just attention on the handler, but focused eye contact. So here you'll see the handler use a lure and move it away from their face.
Yes.
Watch that the dog looks to the lure and the handler waits until the dog looks back to their face and makes eye contact before marking it with the word yes.
Yes. Good girl. Good girl. Lucy, good job. Watch. Yes. Good girl. Good.
We want the dog to come to his own decision on what works for him. So let him look away, and when he looks back, that's when you'll mark and reward. This is also an exercise that's best done on both sides. So here the handler will move the reward over to the right hand and practice on that side.
Yes, good girl. Good girl. Here we go. Lucy, Lucy, good girl. Watch. Yes.
Dogs get pretty good at knowing where that reward comes from. So another way to practice getting focused eye contact is to vary your delivery. That simply means putting rewards in different places and having them come from different spots, so the dog just doesn't always focus on one pouch or one hand or one pocket where you keep your treats. Here you can see the handler putting food in different places. And we're simply going to repeat the exercise, and the rewards are going to come from different locations.
Yes. Good girl. Good. Lucy, good girl. Watch.
This is a great exercise if you notice your dog tends to just watch one hand or tends to just watch where you keep your treats. Practice putting the food in different locations. Have it come from all over the place. That way the dog focuses more on the eye contact and not where the treats are stored.
Lucy, good girl. Watch.
Now that we've got the dog paying attention and giving some focused eye contact, let's strengthen this behavior by varying the rewards.
Lucy,
What varying the
good
rewards
girl.
means is simply,
Watch.
instead of just giving a treat, we're going to vary those rewards.
Wow.
Sometimes it'll be a toy, sometimes a treat,
Good job.
sometimes some physical
All right.
praise with some verbal praise. Mix the rewards up. It makes the game a lot more interesting and strengthens the behavior.
Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good. Yes, good girl. All right. Good job. Good job. Good girl.
Along with varying the types of rewards, we can also vary when and how often we reward. By making the rewards a little bit intermittent, we'll strengthen the behavior even further. Sometimes the dog will receive a reward,
Good job.
other times it will
Good
simply
girl.
get praised and will move on. This makes the game a lot more interesting.
Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good girl. Yes, good job. Good one. Good. Ready? Good girl. Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good. Good job. Good girl.
Now that we've strengthened the behavior a bit, let's raise the criteria in step 8 by varying our position. We'll place the dog on a leash and we'll use a lure to position the dog at the handler's left side. Whenever you raise the criteria, you might have to go back a step or two and help the dog a little.
Lucy,
Maybe use your hand to redirect the dog's attention and get him started.
watch. Good girl. Yes, good job. Good girl. Good.
Now we're starting to see a dog give good focused attention.
Watch.
This is what we're looking for before we give any commands to our dog. Good focused eye
Good
contact.
job. Good. Good job.
The next step in this process is to add a few distractions to see that the dog really has this behavior. We'll start with very mild distractions, something that's not startling or unfamiliar to the dog.
Nice
In this case, the handler simply has a pencil. It's an object the dog is familiar with and has seen a million times. That's going to be
Good
my
girl.
distraction.
Watch. Good.
The dog's allowed to look whenever the object is dropped on the floor. And again, like before, we'll wait for the dog to give focused eye contact. No need to correct or tell the dog to leave it. Allow the dog to come to his own decision, look at the object, and realize there's no reward by looking at the object, only when I look back at the handler.
Yes, good girl. Good job. Good job. Here we go. Good girl. Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good. Yes, good girl. Good.
As you watch this dog, notice that it's become less and less interested in the object being dropped because it's realized that focused attention is where all the good stuff happens.
Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good. Yes, good girl. Very nice. Very nice. Good job. Here we go. More. Good. Lucy, good girl. Watch. Good. Yes, good girl. Good girl.
Now that we have the behavior going, our next and final step is to practice it everywhere. Let's take this on the road. We'll move outside where it's a little bit more distracting. And again, you might want to back up a little bit and help the dog give eye contact to start. Just as before, we'll practice in different positions and add duration to the exercise, taking the dog slowly, step by step, through the process that we did indoors. Another exercise that can be done while practicing this is to simply practice eye contact in a down. The dog can be placed in a down, the handler steps out in front of the dog. Watch as this dog figures out to look to the handler for rewards. The handler doesn't correct for the dog looking at the ground or sniffing. It simply waits, and every time the dog makes eye contact, the handler says yes and steps in rewards. Notice how quickly now the dog begins looking back to the handler instead of wasting time sniffing the ground. And there were no corrections, leave-its, or bad dogs needed. Here the same distractions can be given. The pencil is tossed, a simple object the dog's not afraid of, just to give the dog the opportunity to look away, and then when it looks back, that's when the rewards happen. Practice these 10 steps and see if you can get your dog to give good, focused eye contact. I'll guarantee if you can, you'll never again say, "My dog doesn't pay attention." The next exercise we want to work on is often overlooked and just assumed the dog should know this. And this is an exercise called teaching kennel. The dog should feel his crate is a safe and secure place. Teaching him to go in on cue is a very valuable skill. To start, we're simply going to take a lure and toss it into the crate and allow the dog to follow it in. The next step will be fading that lure. So we're going to be pretending to toss the lure in and allow the dog to follow the hand, but once the dog is in the crate, that's when the lure will be given. The following step will be to send the dog into the crate, and then we're going to ask the dog to lay down. We'd like the dog to be in a down position before he gets rewarded. Next, let's practice sending the dog into their crate and removing the leash while the dog remains in the down.
Good girl. Kennel. Kennel. Good girl. Yes.
You can then practice opening and closing the door while the dog remains in that position. Each time the dog remains calmly, he gets rewarded. If the dog were to get up, simply close the door. Now we'll practice reattaching the leash. Again, working on getting the dog to remain in the down position. And those are our 2 skills for this week. This week's video challenge will be attention and kennel. First, see if you can get your dog to give good, focused eye contact. This is a big one, an important skill for any service dog. Second, see if you can get your dog to go through those steps